All right, we're gonna get going. It looks like it's time. Cool. Who's sick of this slide? Please, please, pass is 365. Explore everything we've got to offer. It's not just Summit. Summit's amazing, Summit's great. I'm really happy you're here. I'm really happy you're here. But Summit's 365. Pass is 365. Words are hard. All right, let's talk. Speaking of hard, data classification is hard. Very, very difficult. So I want to take a little bit of time, walk you guys through why are we doing it. Probably you already know. But also how we can do it. How we can do some of the identification and how we can establish some rules within our organizations to make this just a fundamental part of what we do. Because for those who were at the keynote, this needs to be a fundamental part of what we do. It's not about the InfoSec people. It's not about just the GDPR or just the CCPA or just about whatever other laws are coming out. It's got to be a fundamental part of what we do because it's just going to get worse and worse no matter what's going on. Right? It's unavoidable. If anybody disagrees, run. Because otherwise you're going to be bored. Okay, cool. So the regulatory landscape is coming to get us, right? I mean, things are shifting. But it's not just shifting. You know, I mean, the GDPR is huge. And it is huge. Who thinks the GDPR does not apply to them? 2, 3 hands. Okay, cool. That's not bad. Why? Why do you think? I mean, are you joking? Are you having fun? And that's cool if you are. Oh, you guys you have only state data. Okay. All right. It's entirely possible. Some companies will not have data that's affected by the GDPR. Absolutely. But probably most of us have data that is. I mean, if you're an online retailer, even if you're located in the United States, you're collecting data from someone in the GDPR. Oh, I'm sorry, in the GDPR, in the EU. And that still includes the UK. Oh, I guess, is anyone here from the UK? Usually they throw something at that point because Brexit, whether they're for or against Brexit, it makes them angry. I work for a UK company, so I'm allowed to crack that joke. No? Okay, all right. Also, we have other stuff going on. Legal stuff that prevents us from moving data around. I like telling the story because it makes my blood pressure go up. FERPA. Anybody in education in the States here? A few people? Cool. FERPA, and I'm going to blame you guys for this, affected me directly. FERPA is protection for students in the educational system. And so my daughter is off at college and gets an appendicitis and goes to the hospital. And they won't tell me where she is. I'm her dad. She's an adult. And she's inside the educational system. They won't tell me who she is. Now, I fixed it real quick because I started yelling. I never do this. I treat everyone nice. But colleges kind of make me angry, and so I apologize. I started yelling because I said, hey, you know how much I pay you? I can cut that off really, really, really quickly. So you might want to find my daughter for me. And yeah, okay, they found her. It's all good. But FERPA is going to affect stuff like that. That means anybody else got similar stories? I mean, I want to protect children's data, but my adult daughter, tell me where she is, come on. But that's definitely going to affect us. Exactly this kind of stuff is going to affect what we're doing for the data. And there's protections built into this that we have to deal with in everything that we manage. Same thing goes for HIPAA. And HIPAA is one of my favorites. I have validated this. So when I say it, I have validated this. HIPAA has a law thing I'm not a lawyer. I don't play one on TV. Whereby, if you knowingly release PII data, you as an individual can go to prison. Now, I have searched, and to my knowledge, no one has. Yet. Who wants to be first? Anybody want a new roommate named Tiny? No. So this is definitely going to affect us. This is huge. And it could affect you personally if you're dealing with PII data. Who's in insurance in the States? Not that many people. Wow. Or you're all going, I'm not telling them. Cool. And then California. Who's in a panic because of California? Okay, so you're all, the people who didn't raise your hands, you're wrong. Except for the guy in the back there that has his stuff bounded within, is it California? Okay. Except for the guy back there, his stuff bounded within one state, he's probably okay. But the rest of us, even if you're just, oh yeah, we're states only, we don't worry about that GDPR thing, it's all good. Uh-huh. Do you have any data from anyone in California? Hey, guess what? January 1. You ready?
Wait, what's going to happen?
There we go. Hang on, I'll get to it. Cool. But this is why we're talking about this. January 1, this takes effect. They passed the law over a year ago. So, yeah, we got fun times coming. Guess what? It's based on GDPR, except it applies to California individuals. Okay, if you're all set for, you're all set for the GDPR? Okay, cool. Although you weren't at Tara's thing, because you're really not set for the GDPR. None of us are, right? Oh, it's creepy. So the GDPR defines personal data, and I like the GDPR. Actually, I do like the GDPR. But I like the GDPR because when you go to read the GDPR, it's written in language I can actually understand. Wait till you see the California law. It's, what? Who's read the California law, the whole law? Do you want to pluck your eyes out? Yeah, me too. Oh my God. It was horrible. GDPR is at least, in language I can understand. Now, it's also in language I must interpret because as a data professional, saying personal data is information that relates to the identified or identifiable individual. Okay, well, that's, okay, fine. What identifies an individual could be simple as a name or a number, or could include identifiers such as an IP address or cookie identifier or other factors. Okay. All right, I got it. Names, social security numbers, health insurance numbers, national health service numbers. Cool. And other factors. Oh, no. Oh, no. What does that mean? Whatever they want it to. Whatever they want it to. Absolutely. But it gets fun. Now, without getting into politics or anything crazy, we could define a genetic sex based on genes, yes? Look around the room and tell me if I could say, this individual who I don't know went to Pass Summit and has 2 X chromosomes. Could I narrow down my range pretty quickly of people? If I also got an eye color, could I almost pretty quickly narrow it more? So personal information suddenly is starting to look pretty creepy, right? It's not just the stuff that we can spot easily. There's more to it because you start to combine data and it becomes personally identifiable. That's creepy. Now, the California Consumer Privacy Act was passed and takes effect January 1. And the CCPA defines personal information as information that identifies, relates to, describes, I know you're not supposed to read slides, but I like reading these, is capable of being associated with or could reasonably be linked directly or indirectly with a particular consumer or household, such as a real name, alias, postal address, unique personal identifier, online identifier, internet protocol address, email address, account name, social security number, driver's license number, passport number, or other similar identifiers. Other similar identifier, I mean, they just gave us this stupid long list, by the way. And also not terribly precise, but then what did they do? Same thing. And so what defines other similar identifiers? We'll find out January 1 or 2, probably 2, because you know the government's taken the first off. Who works for the government? Cool. You have the first off, right? Okay. Actually, I do too. I'm joking. But HIPAA, I'm not reading this one. But it includes any common identifiers. HIPAA is going to come for us too. So all this stuff is putting us on the spot. We cannot get away from it. Family educational rights includes, but is not limited to. Again, what does it mean? Whatever they want. There's just no getting away from this stuff. But it does even say other indirect identifiers. So we've got to start to think these things through. This is a completely new world we're working within. And it ain't easy. And it's just going to get harder. They talk about the GDPR and they talk about the CCPA, or CCPA, yeah. We talk about those things all the time, but there are other states coming up with their own laws. The federal government doesn't look like it's going to do one in the United States, so we're probably just going to have 50 different ones. Other countries are coming up with their own laws. China's passed a GDPR-style law, and there are other countries passing similar stuff. New Zealand, Australia, Canada, certainly Japan, a couple of South American countries that I'm aware of, and more. It's just all coming. So we're not getting away from it. And if we look at them, oh nuts, I don't have my notes up so I can tell you the numbers. But if we look at them, the GDPR fines are growing. They are not, it's really interesting. A lot of us, Richard, are you here? Richard McCaskill. I work at Redgate Software. Richard works at Redgate Software. And we've been talking about this stuff and how it was going to evolve, how GDPR was going to come out. And I was always on the idea that they're going to, day one, they're going to find like 4 or 5 medium-sized companies and squish them flat, go to the courts, get precedent, and then go after the big boys, right? Marriott, British Airways, stuff like that. But instead what they did was they started going, they just kind of like started going after companies and putting out little fines that started growing and growing and growing. Sort of like going, hey, we want you to listen to us. No, really, we want you to listen to us. Smack, I said, listen to us. And yeah, it's starting, and now they're going to get to the point where they're doing this because these fines are getting bigger and bigger. They're getting to the point where it's actually real money for organizations like this. So it's just not going to change. And here's the fun thing, and this is a very recent, I do a lot of research on this stuff. This is something I'm just fascinated with. Half of UK firms are not GDPR compliant. And it kills me when I talk to audiences and people say, oh yeah, we're all set. I'm like, really? Have you checked? Have you tested it? Have you walked through it? Because half of all firms are not GDPR compliant. But if we look at it, we've got the CCPA coming in, and the same issues are coming up there. And what we're seeing is that people are not ready. We're not ready for this stuff to happen. Companies have their hair on fire. I love that quote because we're not ready. Now, if you already feel like you've got GDPR compliance in hand, you may be ready for the CCPA. But who doesn't feel like they maybe have GDPR ready? Few hands. Cool. Good, good. And who doesn't feel like, or they're going, oh my God, I didn't know about the California law? Few hands. Not as many. Couple. All right. What's the first rule when digging a hole? Yeah, put the shovel down and stop digging. We've got to change what we're doing. And so here's the deal. There's some steps we can take. It's not easy. I've got 8 steps defined. By the way, Richard helped me a whole bunch on this. We walked through it several times to come up with this. But we walked through it and came up with what has to happen. And so you guys got to just go through this stuff. You've got to figure out who the stakeholders are. You've got to figure out the scope. You've got to define the information. You can't get away from it. Classify the data, validate the classification, mark it somehow, generate some mechanism of keeping track of it, and then monitor it. Who's got spare time? Me neither. Actually, I do. I don't really have a real work anymore. Yes, sir.
Well, the one other thing is, depending upon your deployment process, if your deployment process, if you've marked it like in prod,
Right.
it will go and remove it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You're going to put it into source control.
Sure. Yeah. You're going to have to put it in source control. It's got to be managed. It's going to be managed through, I would recommend, a DevOps process. And I know an organization that could help you with that. Just saying. They're, brightly colored, the most biggest and intimidating booth downstairs. Yeah, go talk to them. It's welcoming. It's welcoming. So how do we identify the stakeholders? Well, first off, we have to identify the fact that there are internal and external stakeholders. It's not simply your organization that you're concerned with. Or, conversely, it's not simply the regulators that you're concerned with. You have to go through the process of figuring out who it is that is going to be affected by your data, right? The board, certainly. You're beholden to your board if you have one. If you're part of an auditing process, you must deal with the fact that you've got to work with your auditors. But also, the sales and marketing team has to know that you've got this stuff in place so that they are able to tell your clients that you are dealing with this stuff appropriately. It should be part of the marketing for your company. Yeah, of course we're ready for the CCPA. Or we've never heard of it, and oh my God. Right? Definitely, InfoSec people inside organizations. Anybody in here? Few people? Cool. You probably all know this stuff more than I do, so feel free to speak up as we go. By the way, questions, comments, shout them out as we go. Right? Don't hesitate. I'm very open. I would fail and lose at Speaker Idle. Just saying. I'd be rated the lowest on day one and then never invited back. It'd be horrible. But yeah, just saying. But also, you're going to need IT management. But you also got to think about the external. You cannot forget the fact that there's going to be, shareholders that care. Certainly, clients or customers or users, or however we're defining them today, the people who are affected by this stuff is definitely going to be affecting what we do. And the authorities, right? When Officer Johnson shows up at the door and tells you about your new roommate because you violated HIPAA, because you were the first one. And by the way, when you are, send me an email. I want to know. So we also have to define the scope. Now, I came out as a DBA, right? I started in development and moved to databases. Oh yeah, and I put up an About Me slide because nobody cares. Let's just talk. But I started out as a developer, moved in as a DBA, and mostly worked within SQL Server. But in the last several years, I've been spreading out as far as I can because data is not in databases. I mean, it is, of course. Of course it's the databases, right? Of course we're going to deal with our SQL Server database. Oh, and our Postgres database that you've got. And oh, by the way, the HR company, HR organization, they've got a server underneath a desk that you guys don't know about, and it's running MySQL, and there's no password on it. Well, and access. Access? What's access? Yeah, no kidding. But you've also got other data stores that are going on, more and more coming in, right? We've got all the unstructured data, the semi-structured data. MongoDB is huge. And oh, my personal favorite, and I love this one because it gives me great stories. Elasticsearch. Anybody running Elasticsearch? Oh, awesome. You know the question I'm going to ask you, right? Have you turned security on? No. Oh, cool. Can you give me your IP address? Oh, it's an on-prem. It's behind the firewall, so there's no problems. Can the room monitor, can you escort him out? And get his IP address on the way. Yeah. So the reason we're joking, for those who don't know, Elasticsearch database, and I'm not picking on the database system itself. It seems to be very popular, and I haven't used it. It seems to work really well, but they designed it by default to make it easy for developers to implement it, because that way the more developers who use it, the more it gets implemented, the more it goes out the door, and the more, yay, we're winning, Elasticsearch is awesome. They implemented it with no security by default. Oh. And so at least 6 times just this year, people have posted their Elasticsearch database to a public IP address with no security at all. Whew. That's fun. And spreadsheets. And Power BI. Constantly going, all your data is going out that way, documents are going out that way. You've got data flow going on, right? You're moving data around. And so that counts as well. And all of the external stuff, right? You don't process all of your own data, probably. So we have to define all of this. It's not just the database. It's not just SQL Server. And if it is just SQL Server in your environment, you're winning, because everyone else is dealing with all of this stuff. Next up, we've got to discover the information. We got to figure out and define what it is that we're looking at. Is it public data? I mean, if we're dealing with public data, that's actually easier, because it eliminates the need for us to do stuff with it, right? If it's government published, whichever government you're from, I don't care. But if it's government published, it's public information. That reduces the stuff. But if it's not, we have to identify the source of the information. Where is it coming from? Is it an internally produced stuff, or is it externally produced? We need to know this, because it affects how we're going to start to do the classification. We can start to look for tools. Tooling can help. I mean, again, go down, visit the guys in red. Cool stuff. But it's only going to help. We've got to start working on automation in order to do this. And we've got to start the process of monitoring everything that we're doing. Otherwise, we're not going to get this done. Yes?
Does it count if a third-party vendor is gathering and showing your information? I mean, does it count against the company?
Yeah, okay, so I'm not going to get into all the GDPR laws. And by the way, the CPPA laws are very similar. But the short answer, she already gave it. Oh, and the question, I'm sorry, I forgot to repeat that. The question was, does it count if it's a third-party vendor who's gathering the information that you are then consuming? And shortest possible answer, yes, it does. So the third-party people doing your stuff are going to do it. So next up, we're going to classify the data. It's easy. Define your classifications. Use the compliance classifications as they're defined, document the tags, and then do the tagging. Done. Yeah. Exactly. This is really hard. Hey, and by the way, everybody taking pictures, feel free, take them all you want, but I will post the slides on slideshare.net, and they'll be available from PASS itself. So either way, I'll make sure you guys get these, okay? Nothing's hidden. So then, after you get the easy part done, yes?
Defining your classifications, what would you consider best practice?
asks for 5.
Yeah.
And then various state level laws, other country laws will have anywhere between 2 and 7.
The question is, oh my God, what do I do? No, he's saying that the multiple different regulatory things are different. Like GDPR has 4, actually. Yes, because the 4th one is not yet classified. We're going to get to some of that a little bit later. So, after this is the easy part. After you do the easy part, you must bring in your legal team. If you think this is an IT issue, you're crazy. This is fundamentally a business problem. Yes, we're all nerds. Yes, we're focused on the IT aspect of it, but this is fundamentally a business problem, and you must bring in your legal team. Yes?
Shouldn't the legal team be coming up with a classification?
I would probably want to work with them day one, if I could. But certainly, if you're doing it on your own, if somebody come in and just said, hey, we're starting this up, go. You know, you can tell your boss no once, usually. But otherwise, you're going to have to deal with that fact. Next, if you don't already have it, and you should already have it, but oh my God, get it, management buy-in. And honestly, that is hard. And you know why? How many new features is data classification giving the company? Don't it? 0. Nothing. Nada. Nicht. Nil. Null. None. Therefore, how much passion will the management team have for you guys to develop new stuff?
They'll care when they get fined.
Oh, they'll care when they get fined. And it'll probably be your fault. I mean, DBA, what's DBA stand for? Default Blame Acceptor. So, you're also going to, in terms of the validation, it's not just an eyeball. You're going to want to find ways to automate this process. You're going to have to do some scripting around it. Now, next, you've got to mark or label it. After you've made all the definitions, done all the figuring out which kind of classifications you're doing, you're going to have to find a way to do some marking. Now, SQL Server, it's easy. Extended properties. Something you can build right into your scripts, something you can build into your DevOps process, something you can ensure is part of your source control system, and fundamentally something that will work for your automation up and down, so that as you're moving data into production or moving data out of production into non-production environments, you have those extended properties. But other places, other things may not have metadata attached. And so you may have to come up with tables of definitions. Or even, and I hate this, external documents. And the reason I hate external documents is not because we don't need them and not because we're not going to use them, but you can't automate from them. And that's going to be a problem for you. You must automate this process. If you're trying to do this manually, you will fail. Who's managing one database? For those at home, 0 hands. Cool. One database, this would be easy. Who has one development team? You guys are so lucky. It's like 4 hands in here. Cool. Everyone else, if you're on one team, okay, it's not easy, I'll grant you. It's easier than 20 or 100, or I don't know how many developers we have. So you've got to automate this stuff. There's no other way around it. Then we've got to generate reporting mechanisms, because there has to be a way to let people know how we are marking the information. You've got to be able to define that, and you need a feedback process. You've got to be able to show the legal team and the management team what we're doing, but also a way for them to go, oh, by the way, we just figured out eye color is a problem. Can you get that on our list? We've got to be able to have that, and then you want to automate that process too. Remember how I told you I was, I don't think only half of you were in here when I said it. I'm going to give you nothing but work in this session. This is labor. You've got to do the labor. And then monitor the process. I mean, the thing is, this has to start at development. This is not something we do after we're in production. I mean, granted, most of us are in brown fields, right? We're already in production. It's all going, man. The train is running. And it's like that old, do you guys ever see the video Microsoft put out like in 92 or 93 where they built a plane in flight? It was kind of cool. It was a neat little commercial for Microsoft. We're building a plane in flight, and people are dropping off. And yeah, so that's just kind of what you guys are doing. You're going to be building a plane in flight. But what you're going to have to do is take a look at DevOps. And yeah, I know I'm a DevOps vendor. But automation, that's what DevOps is all about. And you need that for this. So I would definitely recommend it. Do you have to do it? No. But you're going to need to do automation, and it's going to have to start at development. You've got to have a mechanism for monitoring your production systems for changes. You have to have it. You should have a mechanism for documenting the stuff that goes into your production system. And you've got to assume that you're going to get out-of-band changes. It's 3 a.m., DBAs, on a Saturday. You've had some whiskey, and your phone rings. Are you going to do what you have to do to get the phone to stop ringing? Yep. I am. I ain't going to lie. And will that sometimes cause an out-of-band change to your production systems? Yep. Go ahead.
The main thing is that DBAs, you got to get your databases down.
Oh, yeah, I agree. I'm not, dude, I agree. I'll repeat it. What he said was the main thing for DBAs, you have to get your databases into source control. Who has their database in source control now? Just curious. Wow, cool. That's almost 2/3 of the room. Wow, that's great. So, we're digging, or at least we're stopping digging. Let's start talking about how we're going to do this. All right, we've kind of got the idea of the checklist. We kind of got some of the ideas of the things. How are we doing on time? We're doing all right, right? First up, let's do it manually. Everybody's got a lot of time, right? No. No, 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 no. I mean, it's possible. You could do it. If you've got a small enough system or enough people with time on their hands. Oh, yeah, we've got 1,000 interns. We just turn them loose and everything's fine. You're not going to do that. So instead, what are we going to do? We're going to start talking about custom automation. If we're not talking third-party tools yet, we could. But if we're not talking tools, then you guys got to build it. First thing you got to do is find a way to walk your databases, walk your data structures. That ain't hard. There's scripts out there. By the way, if you were going to do this yourselves, and I've no objection to doing it yourself, although I prefer you went and bought my stuff, but if you're going to do it yourself, I strongly recommend, if you don't know it already, learn PowerShell. And if you don't know about it already, learn DBA tools. DBA tools is a PowerShell automation. It's an open source. One of the guys is here who made it. He's doing some talks on PowerShell. He did a pre-con Monday showing DBA tools. I think he doesn't make any money on it, but I think he's making a living off of it somehow. I don't know. But I would absolutely recommend it because that's going to help you with this structure. Because you're going to want to use table names, certainly, column names, certainly, but also data types. You do not want to be reliant on only names. But with those two, you can search your own structures to try to identify things. And so you can write the automation to search your structures, identify the stuff, bring it back to you so that you can look at it in reports. And it's just a ton of work, but you guys can do it that way. And that's what you're going to have to do because you don't have direct control of everything going on in your systems, right? Most of us. Most of us. I mean, some of us do. I mean, there's a few people like, they got an iron fist and they've got it all locked down, and that's great. But most of us, there's stuff coming in from all directions very quickly, and so you're going to have to walk this through an automated process. Now, you could look at SQL Server Management Studio. I talked a little bit about it at the front, forgetting that I had to talk about it in the slide. And you could use SQL Server Management Studio. The 19 version has got a data classification tool built in. And it will allow you to walk through SQL Server databases and classify some of your data in an automated fashion. Also, that's built into Azure SQL Database. Azure SQL Database, yeah.
It's actually there 17.
It was in 17.4, yeah, I knew that, and 18. I want everyone to go to 19. Not SQL Server 2019. You guys know that SQL Server and Management Studio have been divorced? Right? They had a horrible breakup. No, it's fantastic. They've been separated. You install one without the other. You can install SQL Server anywhere you want, and then you can install Management Studio anywhere you want, and they're completely different now. And unlike the old days when to install Management Studio, you had to get a SQL Server install. Nod your heads. Tell me that you already know this. Okay, cool. I'll shut up. Anyway, the 19 version, 17.4 version, will walk your structures using column and table names. And then it will use the GDPR classifications. Richard, help me, they're not in my head. What are they again?
GDPR classification.
Yeah, please.
Well, it's personal, highly sensitive, and none of them I'm not yet.
Say it one more time louder.
So, personal data,
Yeah, personal data, special category personal data,
and then you've got non-GDPR.
non-GDPR and not yet classified. Yeah. So yeah, there's personal data, which, okay, good luck. He's always telling me, what does that mean? I'm like, well, it means the personal information that you're supposed to identify. That's what it means. Done. Yes, I know the legal definition, but tell me which columns that means. He doesn't know either. He's smart. That's why I asked him to be here, so I could have somebody help me for where I'm stupid. And then the special classification, personal data.
That's stuff like political affiliations, sexuality, medical records.
Political affiliations, medical records, children's data. That one gets me really, really exercised. Did anybody see my really bad, I freely admit it, presentation yesterday on SQL injection? A couple of people? I'm sorry. There's a company called iDressUp, just very, very recently, just in the summertime. My favorite website, no, kidding. I know you guys already heard that joke. It suffered from a SQL injection attack, and they released millions of children's data through a SQL injection attack, and it just makes me angry. So, I mean, that's something we have to stop. Now, there are third-party tools. They are generally a little better than Management Studio, because the one thing Management Studio does not do is take into account the data types. Because if I name a table fart, and a column fartier or something, I don't know, and the data type is 3 numbers followed by a dash, followed by 2 numbers, followed by a dash, followed by 4 numbers, does it matter what the column name is? All the Americans in the audience just know what I said. It should not matter what the column name is. We should be able to have an automated way to figure out that data is my Social Security number. So that's got to be taken into account. Now, frankly, the third-party tools are awesome, especially ours, but probably incomplete. So I recommend you embrace the healing power of and. You're going to be doing some manual work. You are. You're going to be doing a lot of automation. You are. Maybe you'll use Management Studio. Maybe you'll get a third-party tool. But you're going to do all of them. Huh? And quickly. Oh, yeah. If you can get that done on Monday, that'd be great. Well, or at least by January 1st, yeah. So we've got to do all of that. Now, DevOps, the reason I bring up DevOps so often is because DevOps is a fundamental part of what we have to do here. We can't get away from it. We're talking about, go back to here for a second. We're talking about automating. We've got to automate. We've got to spend lots and lots and lots of time writing lots and lots of code. Now, you'll notice I haven't given you code. Because, we don't give stuff like that away for free. Well, actually, you can. DBA Tools is where you want to go to get free code. Some cool stuff. But we've got to spend time on this, and we've got to spend time automating. And so I'm recommending DevOps. As he said several times, and 2/3 of the room is following it. That's great. You got to get your databases in source control, right? And that's step one of DevOps is getting everything in source control because that's the foundation of automation. So you've got to have that done. But then we've got to start doing all the hard work. So even if you buy some fantastic third-party tool, you're still going to be doing all kinds of automation because you've got to have a mechanism for identifying your personal data, the PII stuff that you have to get rid of or mask or do whatever, encrypt and all these other things, but you're going to be moving that stuff into your development environment at some point, right? Okay, well, how do we move to development? We run it back up and restore. It's all good. Or not, because we've just released stuff to unauthorized persons, and now we're meeting our new roommate, Tiny. Yay! So the reason I push DevOps, the reason I talk DevOps, is because DevOps is about process. And this is, you've got those 8 steps that that we're looking at. Identify the people, identify what we're doing, figure all that stuff out, and then go through and do the tagging. And you'll notice I'm not telling you what to tag to answer your question very directly. I don't know. What I do know is that when you consult with your legal team, you are going to have to talk to them and say, like, here's 27 different things we could do. What do you think? Like, I know the GDPR applies to us, so probably we want to do that. I know that the CPPA applies to us, so probably we want to do that too. We're not covered under HIPAA, so we don't need to worry about that. But you've got to go through that process, and then you've got to say, like, well, okay, what do we do? Do we tag all of them individually, or do we tag a certain way so that it covers multiple laws? And I don't know. My personal recommendation: have a single set of tags and make it cover multiple laws. Multiple sets of tags are harder to maintain, harder to explain, and certainly harder to implement because you're going to have multiple different automation streams to deal with multiple different sets of tags. And I'm lazy, right? Freely admitted, I'm lazy. Don't make me work, please. And so the less work I can do, the better. And also, frankly, the more easy I can make my automation, the more accurate the automation is going to be. So yeah, I would go with a single set of tags. That is definitely my recommendation. Yes?
Maybe an unimportant question. The term data ops, how do you feel about that?
Are you following me on Twitter? The question was, the term data ops, how do I feel about that? I think he just wants to hear a rant. I hate it. I do. I hate it. DevOps includes everybody. We don't need special terms. There doesn't have to be a SecOps in order to do security. There does not need to be a data ops in order to do data. There does not need to be an operations in order to do operation. Op-ops. We got to have op-ops. Op-ops is really important. Yeah, op-ops is very important. Yes?
I'm not understanding if these regulations are requiring classification
Okay, great question. She says, I don't understand if these regulations are requiring you to classify your data or if they're just requiring you to find and delete it. And here's the great answer. He already said it exactly the way I was going to, and I'm jealous because you said it quicker. Yes. They are requiring you to find and delete the data, absolutely, and tagging the data. The reason you're going to tag the data is to make it easier to track it down and delete it. But also, it requires you to classify your data and publish that information. The GDPR. No, you do not have to publish trade secrets, and certainly you're not going to publish, well, these are the names of our tables, and here are the names of our columns, and here's our password. By the way, a lot of you are doing that already in your error messages on the web. Just letting you know. Oh yeah, me too. Yeah.
Another reason to classify is because 2019 you can audit based upon classification.
In 2019 has the auditing will start it will start auditing the data movement based on the classifications. But also once you've classified your data, you can then audit it or manage it through the classifications. But that's the big reason of pushing DevOps for this, is because DevOps defines process. And we're going to be doing nothing but process because we have to start the data discovery at development. So already we're in dev. We've got to put, we got to put a mechanism in place for managing our tagging, untagging, and movement of the datas and the data structures. So gosh, that really sounds a lot like DevOps. We have to make, we have to have discipline and documentation around everything that we're doing for the tagging of the data. Wow, that really sounds like DevOps. And we've got to automate all this stuff so that it's a fundamental part of the processes that we're doing so that we're moving the data up and down in our environments correctly. Once again, sounds like, yeah. Sir, you had a question.
The classification also helps me recognize when I need to encrypt that data.
Well, yeah. Oh, yeah. The classification is fundamental to encryption, too. Or even just masking. I mean, I don't want to get into my whole spiel from yesterday because at least 4 people were there and they'll be bored. And it was a really bad presentation, so. Pardon?
Masking doesn't work.
Okay. There's a comment, masking doesn't work. We have to define what kind of masking we're talking about. If you're talking about, say it.
Dynamic data.
Yes, he's talking about dynamic data masking. Who's using dynamic data masking in your production environments? Wow. Oh my God. No one. Really? I'm not going to pick on you. I just want to know. Wow, okay, well, we're not going to talk about it. No, dynamic data masking is built into SQL Server, and what it does is it masks data in place based on your login. But it is, what's a good word? Stupid. It has use cases, but security is definitely not one of them. I would not use it for securing my data at all. It is hyper easy to bypass, like to the point of almost not existing. I mean, it's not as easy to bypass as the encrypted stored procedures are. And who's encrypting their stored procedures to protect their data? Anybody? Okay, cool. That one's died a good. Oh, one in the back. Stop. We can open them. It doesn't matter. It's really easy to open them. It doesn't do anything. So masking doesn't work. Dynamic data masking is not a security measure. So yes, you're right about that. But actually masking data, meaning rewriting it, works great. Because it's gone. Now, when you talk about masking, though, what you've got to do is you've got to literally mask. because, let me take the first letter from the first name and the first letter from the last name and swap them out, and now the data is masked. Oh, I've seen it. I had someone tell me, yeah, it's protected. It's like, it's not anymore. Well, yeah, but you'd have to know that. I'm like, I can look at it and tell you. It's like, what? God. Yeah, you're tricksy. You've got to actually do the masking. But then that gets, this is getting into a whole development thing once we start talking about this stuff. But yeah, okay, then you've got to mask it. When you do the masking, then you've got to do the data distribution on the masking as well. Because if you've got a certain number of American Express credit cards and a certain number of Visa or MasterCard credit cards, you want to, even though you're masking the data, oh, and by the way, when you do that kind of stuff, you have to mask it in a weird way because the first 3 characters are a bank and the 4th character is this, and then the last character is a checksum, and there's PCI people going, yes. And so you've got to go through your data and figure out what the distribution is in production and then match that set of statistics in your non-production environments. Do the wave. Taking notes and making faces. Oh my. It's either he sucks or, oh my God, we got work to do. Pardon? It can't be both. It could be both. Embrace the healing powers of and. I love that phrase. We use it at my house a lot for silly things. Makes everyone laugh over and over again. So we've got a lot of work in front of us. We've got to go through this process. And I hate saying this because I'm going to repeat it because it's going to upset y'all. I'm not telling you how to mark your data. Who came in here going like, Grant's just going to tell me like what to do? I'm sorry. I'm not going to tell you that because I don't know. I don't know your data, and I don't know which regulations you're required to manage. And I don't know what kind of data your business is doing, and I don't know what your third-party vendors are doing, and I don't know all the things going on inside your environment. So I can't simply hand you a script. Here, do this. I wish I could. I mean, it's like query tuning. Everyone's just like, just tell me how to make it run faster. And I'm like, okay, well, here's a 1,000-page book. There, done. No. Tell me the 3 steps. There aren't any. It's the same thing here. There is not a single set of steps that we can give you. I've given you the 8 steps that we've defined here, and that's going to get you as close as I can. But I don't know your systems. And I don't know what kind of tools you're going to have. I mean, maybe it's going to be PowerShell, and awesome. But is the PowerShell going to work on the MacBooks that have all the spreadsheets on it? Well, it can, but that means we got to do some work there to get that set up. And so, I mean, I can't give you a single answer, and I really want to, but I can't. And even if you go to a third-party vendor, and there are some good ones out there, not just colored red, even if you go to those, they're not going to be complete. I promise you. They may be good, they may be really helpful, but it will not be complete. And you're going to have a unique circumstance. Like she said in the keynote, you're going to hit that situation where the person from the EU, I'm stealing this straight up for those who don't know, the person from the EU is being sued in the United States, but they issue a right to be forgotten request. Now what? Well, now, I know the US legal system is going to go, that's funny. But it's going to go through a series of legal steps to deal with that first. So there's not like an instant like, oh, well, here's the switch that makes that happen or doesn't make that happen. You're just going to have to deal with it. We're going to have to figure it out. So I can't tell you what to do with your data, but I can give you guidance. So this is the process. Richard and I spent tons of time going through this, mostly Richard. He's smarter than I am. We've got to go through this. This is what I can give you for doing your identification on your data. That's it. Take a picture. Because that's the magic. And I know you're going to tell me, that ain't magic. And it ain't. It's a lot of work is what that is. A ton of labor. You're going to be doing tons of stuff. Going through these processes is not going to be simple. And on top of it, you got to deal with your security. On top of it, you're going to have to do your encryption. On top of it, you're going to have to build your deployment processes, your backups, and all the rest of that stuff. And you're going to have to do all of this with everything else you're doing. So I'm giving you nothing but work. But what I can do is give you a little guidance. We've been working on stuff like this. We've been working with people. PASS is, fingers crossed, hopefully, GDPR compliant. Because PASS went through and did classification on data. You go to PASS right now, you can issue a right to be forgotten, and we will drop all of your data. Pretty sure, pretty sure. Pretty sure. We've had multiple requests for it too, so we've actually run the process. We know that we can do it, probably. Well, it's hard, because all it takes is one spreadsheet that we forgot, or better still, didn't know about. Tell you a story. I won't tell you who. This is fun. I talk on GDPR all the time. I got an email from a SQL Saturday event saying, thanks, Grant, for coming to our event. We're really excited to have you. It's so wonderful that you're going to speak on Saturday. And I got this email on Thursday. And freaked right out. I didn't know I was speaking at that event on Saturday. I hadn't submitted. I don't have plane tickets because it was in another city. And I'm having a heart attack. I got on the phone with my boss. I'm going, oh no, oh no, oh no. And she's going, well, what happened? How did you do this? I'm like, it's not my fault. I didn't do anything. I finally got smart, contacted the organizer and said, what's going on? And they went, oh, we're sorry. We sent those emails from an old spreadsheet. Now, I was nice on the phone, but when I hung it up, I had a long string of expletives because an organization dedicated to training people in how to be better at managing data was using old spreadsheets to send emails. So, yeah.
You don't know what I got on my laptop.
I'm not saying, I don't want to know what you got on your laptop. He's a security nerd. They're all hackers. But yeah, so you're going to have to deal with this stuff, yes? I love that question. What about restores from a year ago or last week? 5 years ago. Okay, so this gets fun. One, as she said today, there really isn't a solution. But the one I've found that at least gets us close is in use today by the American legal system. Probably anybody in here dealing with courts? Data from courts, anybody? So you already know what I'm going to say. Cool, only one, awesome. If it was half the room, I wouldn't say it, I'd have you guys tell me. But so here's what you can do. The American legal system right now has a requirement to be forgotten. We've had it for a million years. And this is dismissed with prejudice, right? It's not only are you not guilty, you should never have been prosecuted. So we're going to expunge your record. There will be no legal record of you ever being arrested, let alone prosecuted. And that's a legal thing that we have in the States. So what do? Well, one, welcome to the death of natural keys. Natural key fans? 2 or 3? Sorry, they're gone. What you have to do is use your identifiers, IDs, GUIDs, whatever, and record the stuff that you have to delete. And you keep a separate database of deleted data. And it's just completely random, completely, not sequential, not hopefully identifiable stuff, not natural keys, certainly, because, hey, we're going to forget you and we're going to keep your name. Wait, what? That doesn't work for me. Okay, we're not keep your name. We'll just keep your social security number. Okay, that doesn't work for me either. You have to have an ID that's just not associated with me at all. And you keep a record of the stuff you've deleted. And then, come restore time, you have to delete the data again. And that's how the legal system does it today. Believe me, it took me a while to track that down. I actually got it from a presentation. Somebody's like, well, because that question comes up a lot when we start talking about security at all, but especially when we talk about the right to be forgotten, that one's huge. Well, what about backups? My initial answer was, I don't know, that's going to be horrific. And I also had one manager go, oh, well, we just have to go to all the backups, run a restore on every single backup we have, delete the data from the backup and do a new backup. It's like, you're on drugs. That ain't going to happen. But the answer is that you're going to have to keep track of that stuff. Now, understand, that's going to affect your RPO and your RTO. Well, not the RPO, but it's going to affect your RTO negatively. And so now you got to explain that to the business. Isn't this great news everyone gets to share? This is like, hey, welcome to the good news about the GDPR. Yes? Well, and what happens when you lose the backup and someone else restores it? That's called a data breach, and you make the news.
But then the person who asked to be forgotten is now included in that. They know you won't forget.
Well, yeah, but that's, it's going to be fun, right? There's going to be all kinds of fun stuff. By the way, the biggest data breach up to 2015, the biggest one was a database backup that had been put on an unsecured location on the web. And it breached like 20 million persons' names, and the company went out of business.
Let's say what happened.
They went out of business. But fun thing, it was a spam company. Well, no. The fun thing is it's a spam company. So you're like, hey, they went out of business. Yeah. They were back in business the next week under a different name, using the same database. Right, because they had the offsite backup. And so you had a question, sir? Oh, okay. Oh, what? Oh, yeah, it happened. So a little bit of suggested reading. Practical steps for end-to-end data protection. These are links. They're on the slide. The slides are going to be available on slideshare.net. And from past, so you take a picture if you want to. Also recommend SQL data discovery and classification. Data catalogs are the new black in data management and analysis, because they are. And data discovery and classification working hand in hand. These are 4 great articles. They're going to walk you through a lot of the stuff that I've just covered, some in more detail. They are also not going to tell you specifically what tags to use. They're also not going to tell you specifically how to tag it, because we don't know your systems. And I know that sucks, but that's where we're at today. This is hard. Fill out your session evals, and that's it. Hey, I put my name on this one. Who was in my slide? Yesterday, I forgot to put my name on it. I had my email address and stuff. We've got about 10 minutes. I would love to talk about this more, or any other topic, anything else on the GDPR or CPPA. Yes. Yeah, go ahead.
I know that there's no one right way to do it, but I was wondering if you could show us or talk about a few examples or different ways that one could add or label there, like what sort of, at a high level, what that might look like.
At a high level, at a high level, what it would look like is picking some identifications such as the 4 from the GDPR. And so you say, like, this is personal information, this is special personal information, and this is not classified. And by the way, mark everything. Don't just mark the stuff you think you need to mark. Mark it all, because eventually you may have to change them later. So you might as well just have a mark on everything.
So you're saying, like, at a table level, have an Like if we were.
Yeah. If we were just talking SQL Server, and SQL Server, just talking SQL Server is easy.
Yeah.
So just talking SQL Server,
Yeah.
we want to label the table and each column. If you have views, label the view. Store procedures, but anything that looks like a table, absolutely, because anything that looks like a table is going to go through reporting. So UDFs, user-defined functions, table-valued user-defined functions, whether inline or multi-statement, they should also be labeled, and the columns, again, should be labeled. Because anything that looks like a table is going to get used by the reporting system. And you want to have the labels in place for that. But then, then it's just extended properties, and extended properties are simple, right? Easy, and they work with source control. Yeah.
So I followed that you tag your tables on data, but then what do you do with the tags? Now everything's tagged. Then
Right, everything's tagged, then what? Go home. No, everything's tagged. Now we start building reports. Or if the third-party tool that we use to tag it has reporting, cool. But we start building reports. And the reports are going to show, this is the data we have, this is how it's been classified, this is the sensitive data. We're not done. Once we've got that, we're going to start setting up monitoring to more carefully monitor the stuff that's protected, either through auditing or through other processes to keep an eye on what's going on. And we're still not done. Once we're tagged, we're also going to be then using those tags as part of our right to be forgotten process, because that's going to be the stuff that we have to delete. And before the question is asked, does that mean delete, or does that mean mask? And my answer is yes. It does mean the data has to go away. So if you're going to mask it, I know what you mean. If you're going to mask it, it has to be masked in such a way that it can never be unmasked, right? We're not talking simply hash it. It has to be replaced with a meaningless replacement if it's personally identifiable. But also remember that, I mean, there's legal things that say like, well, this data has to be kept for, forever from a legal standpoint. And someone says, I want to be forgotten. Even though that's PII data, you also have other laws that apply. You have to make sure that that stuff can't be deleted if it is under protection. So there's a whole bunch of work. I think that's about it. Yeah. So you're all good, right? Data anonymization, true. Oh, there are exemptions for the CPPA, absolutely. Certain nonprofits are not covered, and I don't have the document memorized, but you'd have to go look it up. Also, depending on the size of your data and the size of your organization, like if you're a one-person band, depending on the amount of data you have under management, you can get away with stuff. But the more data you collect, as you get past like a certain number of California person's data, you then get covered again. But and then there's a couple of industries that aren't covered, and then they also have there's several clauses, impossible to read, explaining how other laws that tell you to keep data are not superseded by the things that's telling you to delete data.
There are two things I noticed just researching it.
Sure.
Companies under 25 million.
Well, yeah, and there's evaluation as well. If you're a covered entity covering HIPAA data, you're not covered. But that's actually not complete, because if it depends on if the data is covered under HIPAA or not. So if your company data that's not HIPAA compliant falls under the CCPA, yes?
GDPR or anything other setting about like data science models that sometimes you can re-engineer.
Has GDPR said anything about data science models? Nothing of that. Well, okay, it depends on how you were asking the question. Are you asking, does the GDPR say anything about the magic that's going to happen with AI and all that stuff, such that, hey, look, even though you've masked everything, I can still figure out who that person is? No. Not really. Pardon?
They do have a white paper.
Oh, they do?
It is dense and hard to read.
Oh, I've not read it.
It's about the mathematics and using statistics to re-identify information, and they fully expect you to actually modify your data a little bit such that you can't re-identify a person. So if you anonymize it, like my perfect example, I do healthcare, we know in a company, a person did an ultra marathon. In my database, one person ran, 100,000 steps.
Right.
His name was in the newspaper. I know exactly who that person was.
Sure, because you're able to reverse the, yeah. So we're in hell. There's no, that's no other way to put it. We're in. I mean, the keynote was right. It's a new planet, man. It's a new planet, and it's got special internets because there's a GDPR internet, and then there's the China internet, and then, she was amazing, by the way. But yeah, it's a whole new planet. It's all new stuff. I got about 2 minutes here. Any other questions, sir?
Actually, I just want to throw out a GDPR resource called enforcementtracker.com. It actually lists everybody that's been fined.
Yeah, I use that one. Enforcementtracker.com if you want to go look up fines. It's kind of like the hacking, SQL Hall of Fame. It's a great place to go, point and laugh. Well, everyone loves, you're going to jail. Sir?
So you said, yourself as the PASS organization, you're not sure when someone's asked, so.
Well, we think we're nailing it, but
How does the entity California audit the fact that, I can tell you, forget me, and then you say, yep, I forgot you, but I have no way to go into your system to actually know. So
absolutely.
how is that going to actually?
They can't, okay, so GDPR is the same as CPPA. They are not going to go and audit you. They can't. They're not going to come in, kick the door down, show us your data. That's not what happens. What happens is you get a breach, or you screw up, use an old spreadsheet to send emails, for example, and I now know that you didn't delete me. I report you to California.
We can be reported.
Huh?
You can be reported.
Yeah.
An organization that suspects and protects my data properly, and the regulator will then investigate.
Yeah, but it has to be reported.
The only way to know that would be is if you have some forward-facing application or something that presents data of a customer or whatever, and then you happen to miss that piece.
Right. Think of it like speeding, to a degree. We all go below the speed limit, right? Until you get caught. It's going to be similar. Everybody's data is fine until you get reported, and they come in and do the investigation and audit, and then you're in trouble. That's more or less how it's going to run. We just, there's like the one slide I had up, and said over half of all UK companies are not GDPR compliant, and that's based on a survey and some work. And the fact is are half of the companies in the UK being sued right now by the government? No, because they haven't been caught yet. They've been evading the speeding cameras.
So how would the audit work at that point? Would they have a list of people who would ask? Would the GDPR know that?
Oh, there's subpoenas and all kinds of fun stuff. It's all a whole legal thing that comes in.
But did you just ask the company to remove you, or do you ask the company and tell someone that you asked the company?
You have to tell someone you asked the company to remove you. But you don't report, you don't go like, take me off your database. Hi, Mr. Government, I told him.
Yeah.
It's take me off your database, then you send me another email, and I go, okay.
How do you ask them when you asked them at the time you asked them?
How do you prove that you asked them to delete you? I don't think you have to.
How do you record that? If you came in, I still need to know that you asked me to delete you, and then if I record you, you have your data.
No, don't record that they were asked you to delete them. There's a form. There's a form and you can fill it out, but the fact is that there's no validation. You could report to anybody don't do this, please don't do this. You could go and report the PASS organization right now that said, hey, I asked them to delete my data and they did not. Don't do it. He's pulling out his phone. You're not an EU citizen, so we don't have to. Yeah, there's all kinds of legal processes around this, guys. There's a ton of stuff. But the fact is that that's all out of your hands, and it goes over this way. But also the thing is, remember, please remember, delete the data. Don't keep anything. If it's personally identifying, such as an email address, don't say, hey, Bob at, thisisnotanemail.com told me to delete him. So he did, all except for Bob at, hey, I'm going to jail.com. Cool. All right, we are out of time. So anybody else wants to talk about this stuff here or down at the Redgate booth? Those are your choices. Thank you.